I, Mayor Sarah Moore, am calling the regular meeting of the Burien City Council to order on June 15th, 2026. The time is 5:30. This hybrid meeting is being conducted in person at Burien City Hall and virtually via Zoom webinar. Please join me in rising to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Would you be able to do the acknowledgement? Deputy Mayor Garcia, would you be able to do the Native Land and Peoples acknowledgement?
Yep, happy to. We begin by honoring and acknowledging that this meeting is taking place on the ancestral lands and waters of the many Coast Salish tribal peoples who have since time immemorial protected and been in a relationship with the Salish Sea and these precious lands we now know as Burien in our home. As a government agency that is occupying indigenous lands, it is important that we remember the history of our area and to work towards fixing the injustices that persist. We acknowledge our region's tribal citizens, their descendants, and their ancestors, and we honor their invaluable contribution to this region's communities, identity, economy, history, culture, and future.
Thank you. The clerk will announce interpretation instructions and will then take roll.
The City of Burien offers Spanish interpretation via Zoom. For those attending on Zoom, please select the language you would like to listen to this meeting in, either English or Spanish. The next slide shows how to select a language on your mobile app. With that, we'll go into roll call. Mayor Sarah Moore.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Hugo Garcia.
Presente.
Councilmember Sam Mendez.
Present.
Councilmember Kevin Schilling.
Here.
Councilmember Alex Andrade.
Present.
Councilmember Rocco DeVito.
Here.
Mayor, all are present.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to confirm the agenda?
So moved. Seconded.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to confirm the agenda. All those in favor, please raise your hand or say aye. We have Councilmember Mendez, Deputy Mayor Garcia, myself, Councilmember Schilling, Councilmember Andrade, and Councilmember DeVito. So the agenda is approved as written. And we move into proclamations and presentations, starting with the United States Semi-Quincentennial Proclamation by Councilmember Mendez.
Thank you, Mayor. This is my first one, so hopefully I get it right. Whereas July 4th, 2026 marks the 250th anniversary of the adoption of the Declaration of Independence by the Second Continental Congress in Philadelphia in 1776, signifying the founding of the United States of America. And whereas the Declaration of Independence proclaimed timeless principles of profound significance to the national heritage of the United States, including that all are created equal and endowed with certain inalienable rights, and this declaration itself was one against authoritarianism and tyranny, that governments derive, quote, their just powers from the consent of the governed, end quote. And whereas the land of the United States was stewarded by indigenous communities since time immemorial, that this land was often forcibly taken from them by the United States government, and currently there are 575 recognized tribal nations within the United States, many with histories of broken treaties, forced displacement, ethnic cleansing, colonization, and atrocities like the Trail of Tears. And whereas the transatlantic slave trade, a global system between the 15th to 19th century, enslaved Africans who were violently kidnapped and sold and transported to the Americas to fuel the agricultural and economic growth of Western empires, and whose forced contributions gave us the largest total economy in the world. And similar systems of oppression continued post-emancipation and continues today. And whereas during the 19th and 20th centuries, the Transcontinental Railroad race to connect the East and West Coast became a reality with the labor of Chinese and Irish immigrants, often working under harsh conditions of segregation and exploitation. And whereas from the 40-hour work week, the weekend, child labor laws, and work safety laws is owed to the countless laborers who organized, went on strike, and negotiated with employers on a fundamentally uneven playing field with a government often more interested in economic growth than the welfare of its people, and that these laborers often paid for these rights with these livelihoods and their lives. And whereas the United States has become a nation of immigrants where the Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986 gave amnesty to over 2 million people, and in the past 40 years, there hasn't been another reform to the backbone of our economy, who, according to the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy, paid $96.7 billion in U.S. taxes in 2022. And whereas in our region, indigenous Coast Salish peoples have protected these ancestral lands and waters and been in relationship with the Salish seas and the precious lands we know as Burien and our home state of Washington. And whereas the semi-quincentennial offers an opportunity for the people of Washington state, which joined the United States in 1889 as the 42nd state, to reflect on our past to move forward, honor the diverse contributions of all community members, and envision the future we strive to create for subsequent generations where Washingtonians are treated equitably and able to achieve the American dream. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Burien, Washington, does hereby recognize and commemorate the upcoming 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States of America on July 4th, 2026, and proclaim July 4th, 2026 as United States Semi-Quincentennial. The City of Burien encourages community to participate in commemorative events that reflect on our history, celebrate our achievements, and reaffirm our commitment to the ideals of liberty. I do have some guests here to receive this proclamation. I just want to add a few other things as well that, simply put, this is a struggle for me. I don't really feel like celebrating right now, and I don't think I'm the only one. We are celebrating the Declaration of Independence, in which 250 years ago, people sought to throw off the yoke of an authoritarian regime. They established a government based on democratic ideals of liberty and equality, and that very same government today is itself an authoritarian regime. That same government is kidnapping people in the streets of Burien. It is taking a chainsaw to programs which human lives depend on. It is engaging in rampant corruption, the likes of which we have never seen, in the interests of billionaires. So I've had to ask myself, what exactly are we celebrating? I can't tell anyone how to feel, but let me offer this. The same things that I have to remind myself of. First of all, that you are not alone. There is a community in person, off the internet, for those who seek it. Choose to feel joy. Right now, it is the most anti-authoritarian thing we can do, among many other actions. And when you look at the flag, or watch the fireworks, or ponder our nation's founding, remember the freedom fighters. Remember the revolutionary soldiers, most of whom were volunteers, and many of whom were literally barefoot, enduring frigid northeastern winters and disease-ridden summers. Remember the abolitionists who were considered radicals at the time, who fought for the freedom of slaves. Remember the slaves who themselves often gave their lives in attempts to be free. Remember the suffragists, the labor strikers, the bus riders, the innumerable immigrants that came here to eke out a living and add a stone to this great building. And remember everyone who continues to this day to hold our government to account for the ideals upon which it was founded. To quote Dr. King, on the night before he was killed, somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest for right. I would like to introduce the Muhabat family, who has graciously agreed to accept this proclamation. They originally come from Afghanistan. They moved here to Burien in 2021, I believe, so they've been here for about 5 years now. I'm so grateful that you could be here, and I'm so grateful that you're here in Burien. If you'd like to offer any comments, please feel free to speak anything you'd like.
Sorry, I don't have anything to say, but I just want to thank you for honoring our family. Where do we?
Our next proclamation is the Summer of Soccer Proclamation from Deputy Mayor Hugo Garcia.
Thank you. Super excited to be able to share this and to that point of being able to share moments of joy during challenging times. I think it was important for us to celebrate this as a city. So here is a proclamation. Whereas the International Federation of Association of Football, also known as FIFA, organizes the world's premier international soccer tournament, which, like the Olympics, takes place every 4 years, with this year's World Cup confirmed to be the largest in its history, expanding from 32 participating countries to 48. And whereas the 2026 FIFA World Cup will be for the first time in its history hosted by 3 countries, with 16 host cities across North America, with Seattle representing the Pacific Northwest, with 6 matches taking place at Lumen Field, temporarily renamed Seattle Stadium. And whereas there will be an estimated 2 billion television viewers gaming attention to our region, and whereas the group stage matches played locally in Seattle Stadium will include teams representing Belgium, Egypt, the United States of America, Australia, Qatar, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Iran, with matches on Juneteenth and Pride weekend. And whereas the city of Burien, in conjunction with Discover Burien, the Highline Heritage Museum, the Latino Civic Alliance, and the Seattle Sound Southside Chamber of Commerce, has coordinated a series of local community events to celebrate the Burien's Summer of Soccer and Fun, showcasing the culture and events unique to Burien. And whereas community members and visitors can enjoy live broadcasts of select tournament matches in our outdoor viewing areas throughout the city, live entertainment and family-friendly activities while supporting local businesses. And whereas the Latino Civic Alliance, in partnership with the City of Burien and other community partners, hosted Burien's Copita Community Youth Soccer Tournament on June 6, 2026, a free family-friendly event at Highline Memorial Stadium. And whereas the Highline Heritage Museum will host cultural events such as the Taco Festival to celebrate Burien's distinction as foodie paradise and supporting local businesses through an immersive cultural experience featuring curated vendors, storytelling, and interactive installations that highlight the heritage of tacos across Mexico and the local community, as well as organizing a Frida Kahlo festival and a multicultural youth festival, in addition to serving as host site for watch parties. And whereas opportunities to be part of the excitement of this major global sporting event will span across the city beyond Town Square Park to Chelsea Park, Old Burien, and Boulevard Park to make the events accessible for residents to enjoy near home. And whereas the City of Burien invites community and visitors to experience the world in one city as they eat global and cheer local throughout Burien's Summer of Soccer and Fun. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Burien, Washington, does hereby ask all Burien community members to join together to proclaim the summer of 2026 as Summer of Soccer in the City of Burien and urge all to support global unity, connection, and recreation. Whew. I am really excited to invite a couple of folks to share and receive the proclamation. One of them is actually a longtime Burien resident. I'll take a personal privilege to just share a little bit about our receiver of our proclamation. Fred Mendoza is the chair board of the Ray Foundation. The Ray Foundation is the Sounders FC, the nonprofit organization. And it is the Ray Foundation had set a goal to set up 26 small free soccer fields for kids by the year 2026. I'm sure that Fred will share, hopefully, if not, that they smashed that record. They went to 52 small pitches. And they're really focused on fields anchoring Ray programs that foster health, learning, and joy. Also, there's a great book called The Seattle Sounders Authentic Masterpiece. It's a local book written by a former radio sports host, Mike Gastineau, and it speaks as to the challenge of, not the challenge, the victory of the Seattle Sounders team being able to advocate and fight for a soccer stadium during a time when the Seattle community was possibly going to lose a football stadium and the Seahawks were moving out of town. And our local owner, Paul Allen, sought assistance from the local soccer community to get support to build a stadium to not just keep the Seahawks in town, but to also think forward towards a future where it could potentially also be a soccer stadium. And Fred and a lot of soccer moms and soccer community members in the late 90s were able to advocate to get this stadium to become not just a football stadium, but a soccer stadium. And now today we are hosting this World Cup tournament because of that vision from those community members on those soccer moms that had spent a lot of time during that summer getting the vote out to make sure that this stadium was a soccer and football stadium. So Mr. Mendoza's family, longtime Burien resident. He had a law firm here for a long time. His daughter went to Seahurst Elementary here. Seahurst Elementary is one of the first mini pitches that we have had here at the city, along with two others. So I'm really excited to be able to ask and share this proclamation with Fred Mendoza from the Ray Foundation and Midori Hobbs, the executive director of the Ray Foundation.
Thank you, Deputy. Excuse me. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This is Midori Hobbs, our Executive Director at the Ray Foundation. As you all in the council know, you sit there and you create policy, but the real work often is done by the folks sitting on the other side of the room. And this is one of those persons. On behalf of Ray Foundation and all of the community nonprofits who work to bring soccer to children, thank you, City of Burien, for this proclamation. As I said the other day at the flag raising, way to go, Burien. The Summer of Soccer idea and its implementation have been awesome. I've been to several of the watch parties now, and Burien's for our small community rates right up there with the rest of them. So many communities didn't take the opportunity to leverage the World Cup for their own communities. They're all looking now at cities like Burien. So again, way to go, Burien. For those of you who aren't familiar with Ray Foundation, let me just take a minute and tell you that we're almost a teenager. 13 years ago, Adrian Hanauer, who is the principal owner of the Seattle Sounders, and I decided to create Ray Foundation. We had worked for years. It is not something that just came to us. We knew, like all of you know, and like Seattle is demonstrating to the world today and for the next month, that soccer is a universal language. It brings people together. It's community, it's unity. That was our ingredient. And we also knew that children have very few places to play where they don't have to buy a uniform and join a team and pay a lot of money to play. We decided that we were going to start creating mini pitches on local school grounds and local city parks where the kids could just drop by and play anytime they want in a free space that's well taken care of. We also know that all you really need to play soccer is a soccer ball. You see it played on the streets and almost anywhere where children get together. We decided we wanted to give away 100,000 soccer balls. And we started doing that on their own. And now with the help of Delta Airlines, we're going to meet that 100,000 soccer ball giveaway shortly. So, yeah. So You will see a lot of them in your neighborhood. I saw some of them out here. I saw some of them out here the other day. Soccer is a universal language. Kids need a safe place to play, and they need them all over. When Seattle was awarded the World Cup, we had this audacious idea to maybe we could do 26 soccer fields by 26 by 26, not much smaller than the normal mini pitch we build. Well, we blew through that in a couple of years. And so somebody said, well, what's 2 times 26? Maybe we could do 52. And as the chair of the board, I said, that might be a stretch. Well, we're at 52. And so wow. And so the other day, somebody said, well, what's 2 times 52? So I guess we're headed for 104. We are. We're headed in that direction. We do it all over the state. We're in Vancouver. We're in Yakima, several fields in Yakima. We're in Tacoma. We partner with the Puyallup tribe and the Muckleshoot tribe. And our goal is to build 102 small fields for kids to play freely in a safe environment around the state. And we're going to do it. So again, these little celebrations that you create help us. And we hope that we're a good citizen and can help you. Our very first mini pitch was Beverly Park. And 5 of our 7 early pitches are in the Highline School District. And so we believe strongly in the city of Burien. As Deputy Mayor said, I've lived here in your neighbor Normandy Park for 48 years. My 2 daughters went through the Highline School District. In fact, my wife graduated from Highline High School, but I won't tell you how far back that was. Our executive director before Midori was the executive director of the Highline School Foundation, which I started with a bunch of parents back in 2001. So we are deeply embedded in this community. We love this community. We've watched it grow. And way to go, Burien. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up, we have the Sustainable Airport Master Plan Near-Term Project, SAMP NTP, Draft State Environmental Policy Act Environmental Safety Impact Statement, or SEPA EIS, presentation from Dave Kaplan, who is the local government relations manager for the Port of Seattle.
Madam Mayor, Council, thank you. Thank you for the time on your agenda. Glad to be with you tonight. With the release of the SEPA Draft Environmental Impact Statement for the Sustainable Airport Master Plan, or the SAMP at SEA, we want to share directly with you information about the document and especially how to participate in the public comment process. I'd like to start with a little background about why we're doing the SAMP, as it's been quite a while since it's been in front of us. You might recall the FAA's environmental assessment of the airport's master plan was published in late 2024, which I think is the last time I was here. Today, I'll be talking about the port's work to conduct an environmental impact statement under SEPA, or the Washington State Environmental Policy Act. While the original terminal has been expanded and updated since opening in 1949, it's working well beyond its current design capacity of 30 million annual passengers traveling through the facility. Perhaps you've used the new Checkpoint 1 at the south end, or traveled through the new gates on End Concourse, or used the flow-through passenger processing that Alaska opened up at the north end of the terminal, or even this last week got a chance to go through the Sea Concourse expansion project. These have helped the terminal do better in handling the continued demand, but our region's growth in air transportation, especially in passengers, has continued year over year, other than the understandable downturn during the COVID pandemic. SEA Airport handled nearly 53 million passengers last year, 52.7 million passengers. The airport capacity baseline study, which the Puget Sound Regional Council published in 2021, showed a strong correlation between the region's population growth and the airport's activity. The forecast for future demand is very strong, even when new capacity from SAMP is assumed, which it was in both the PSRC and the state airport capacity planning. Based on forecasted demand, there will be 27 million more passenger boardings per year than SEA Airport can accommodate at a comfortable level of service by 2050. And the new Washington State Aviation System Plan, which was released just a couple weeks ago, shows that Washington State's unconstrained demand forecast reaches 107 million annual passengers by 2050, well beyond what we can accommodate at one airport. Without new facilities for future projected demand, people will still travel, but congestion at SEA Airport will increase, causing additional delays, crowded facilities, and congestion in and around the airport. There are some key factors in our region which drive this continued demand: business growth, international business, leisure travel connections, well-paid jobs, companies and schools based here who attract residents. These are some of the reasons people travel to and from Washington State. Just as cities undertake comprehensive planning to look at future needs or goals, the port began developing the airport master plan. This work identifies future needs and proposes airport improvements to address those needs. At SEA, one of the biggest needs shown in early forecasts of robust growth and later confirmed by the PSRC work and now the state study was to serve the forecasted future demand. And this planning work was one of the earliest efforts at an airport to include sustainability directly in the planning, not just as an approach to later include in project design. So the master plan at SEA is the Sustainable Airport Master Plan, or the SAMP. The sustainability component of the airport master plan identified where we build, how we build, and how we operate in the existing 3-runway configuration. I want to briefly flag the updated timeline shown here, since we completely scoped on the SAMP environmental review in 2018, literally at the time I was hired at the port 8 years ago, almost 8 years ago. The COVID pandemic and its effects struck in the middle of the analysis and extended the schedule significantly. Last year, the FAA completed its federal environmental review of the plan, and the FAA found no significant impact, which means that building the proposed new projects as compared to not building the projects does not cause additional effects that exceed applicable standards in the difference categories analyzed in the FAA's environmental assessment. Now, with the port as the lead agency under SEPA, we published the SEPA draft environmental impact statement, which is now available for public review and official comment. As you may already know, environmental review under federal and state laws is done to assess how projects, if built, may impact the environment compared to the existing and future conditions if the projects are not built, and helps decision makers in the community understand how proposed projects may affect the environment before actions are taken. It compares the proposed action, in this case, the Sustainable Airport Master Plan near-term projects, against other alternatives that could still meet the needs and against a no-action scenario, as if no projects were built. The port is the lead agency for this environmental review under state law. The port voluntarily chose to go the more involved EIS, environmental impact statement route, for the SAMP near-term projects, even when impacts could be mitigated. The SEPA review builds on the earlier NEPA analysis done at the FAA's direction. Then the port went beyond what is required under SEPA by examining a more detailed air quality analysis, including a human health risk assessment, a qualitative human health noise literature review, a qualitative literature review of particulate matter, environmental justice, and cumulative impacts. Now I have a short video to share which explains the process and the why.
In 2018, the Port of Seattle completed its Sustainable Airport Master Plan, or SAMP, for Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, or SEA, which outlines the growth strategy for the airport. This plan addresses increasing passenger and cargo volumes through a suite of projects known as near-term projects. Longer-term projects were also identified, which will require additional planning and environmental review. The purpose of the near-term projects is to address challenges like crowded passenger facilities and cargo handling and outdated airfield design. By 2032, SEA is expected to serve over 57 million passengers per year. The projects include building a second terminal and roadways, enhancing taxiways, and ensuring that the airport meets FAA standards while improving efficiency for both passengers and cargo. We're also planning for increased fuel storage, including storage of sustainable aviation fuels. These projects are expected to be completed or well underway by 2032. SEPA is expected to be complete by the end of the year. An environmental review is an important process. SEPA is Washington State's environmental review law and helps decision makers and the community understand how proposed projects may affect the environment before actions are taken. It helps determine how the proposed project might affect environmental elements such as air and water quality, climate, plants and animals, traffic, and noise levels in local communities. SEPA environmental review identifies impacts between action and no action alternatives. Impacts expected to exceed regulatory thresholds are considered significant impacts. Where significant impacts don't occur, it is usually because impacts are limited or minimal based on existing regulatory requirements. If significant impacts are identified, the environmental review outlines ways to avoid, minimize, or mitigate these effects, ensuring projects can proceed responsibly while protecting both people and the environment. In many cases, SEA has programs in place that require impacts to be addressed through regulatory requirements or voluntary programs. SEPA technical analyses were conducted to complement the rigor of the NEPA EA. Additional required analyses included greenhouse gases and climate, earth, transportation, housing, plants and animals, and cumulative impacts. Additional voluntary analyses performed by the port included air quality, noise, human health, and environmental justice. The environmental impact statement performed for the Port of Seattle analyzed 16 elements of the environment for potential impacts and found one with significant impacts that can be mitigated by the port below the threshold of significance. This is surface transportation. To offset the expected transportation impacts from the near-term projects, the Port of Seattle will invest about $40 million in improvements to ensure smoother traffic flow in and around the airport. Detailed information on the findings, elements of the environment, and how to submit a comment or attend one of our public meetings can be found online at sea-samp.com. You can also sign up to receive updates on SEA's Sustainable Airport Master Plan. We encourage you to participate in this important process. Together, we're building the future of SEA.
Let me step through how the document's organized. The SEPA EIS evaluates 16 separate environmental topics, which SEPA calls elements of the environment. Begins with a summary and then is organized with chapters on purpose and need, alternatives, affected environment, impacts and mitigation measures, and cumulative impacts. Within each chapter, it spells out what information was in the NEPA document and what is new to SEPA. The full document and appendices are available at sea-samp.com. At the Thank you. You'll see on the SAMP homepage there is a link that notes for selecting materials. That will pull up the 6 chapters and the appendices for each of the different elements of the environmental review. Okay. Physical copies of the SAMP draft EIS is at the library shown at the Port of Seattle's corp headquarters at Pier 69 and at the conference center at SEA. And you'll notice that it's in the library here in Burien. The 4 public meetings which are shown here will be identical open house format, offered in different locations near the airport and on weeknights as well as a weekend date. There'll be several stations at the in-person open houses, which will focus on the various areas of analysis, with technical staff available to answer questions and provide more information. At each meeting, an official hearings examiner will take comments directly from attendees who wish to comment for the SEPA record, as well as printed comment forms if people want to write and turn in comments. Language translation assistance will be available at all public meetings in addition to childcare services. The public comment period runs from May 22nd through July 21st, 60 days, which is double the required comment period for a SEPA EIS. And just to note that the public comment, a public open house will be here in Burien, I believe on Saturday. Is that correct? I think so.
It's noted for Saturday, June 22nd,
Thank you, 27th.
10 a.m.
Yes, thank you. Now that the EIS is published, our focus is on encouraging involvement and public comment in the review. For that work, we're doing several things. We've emphasized using language that stays away from jargon and is more conversational when communicating. In addition to what is on the screen and the project-specific website, sea-samp.com, we'll send out a community mailer to over 100,000 households about the meetings. The meeting boards and other research outreach material are translated into 8 languages, 2 more than under NEPA. And we're emphasizing online translation of videos and boards with use of closed caption translation. We're expanding the port's network of community-based organizations, many of whom are grant applicants and recipients of our South King and Port Communities Fund, and using community liaisons to engage further and help us meet directly with community members. That's the postcard that I believe has already gone out and should be showing up in your mailboxes. Next steps are shown here, and I want to emphasize that every comment received is reviewed and responded to in the final EIS, which we expect to publish before the end of this year unless additional analysis is needed. Also, while the EIS will be completed, it does not authorize any of the near-term projects. Just as the commission does now with our capital programs, projects need to be proposed and receive commission authorization in order to proceed. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. That was a lot of information. Any council members have questions? Councilmember Mendez?
Dave, thank you for being here. I'm thinking a lot about that, the phrase, well, I'm not actually getting the exact words right, but no serious impact. One question I've got is in 1997, the consulting firm HOK warned that increased air traffic from construction of a third runway would contribute to a cycle of economic blight in neighborhoods adjacent to the airport. HOK recommended that 5 cities, including Burien, receive subsidies to help offset losses in property tax revenues resulting from a decline in property values. In light of the damage already done and the additional noise and pollution these expansion projects will generate, isn't it time for the port to consider providing such compensation? We're aware the port has long held that such direct payments would violate the state constitution. However, the state solicitor general now says that is incorrect, that such expenditures are allowable when they are made to, quote, carry out a fundamental governmental purpose. Is the port prepared to revise its position and provide such assistance to the airport impacted communities?
I appreciate the question, but I think given the other venues in which conversations are going on, I don't think I'm going to answer that one.
Any further questions from council? Deputy Mayor Garcia?
I'll just add, I have a separate question, but I'll add that to the information and within the question that was asked by my colleague, Councilmember Mendez. One of the neighborhoods that I would say have been impacted negatively from the lack of economic impact on it since the expansion of the third runway to today here in Burien is Boulevard Park. It's under the flight path. It's our lowest income neighborhood, highest poverty rate neighborhood. We have a neighborhood that had a grocery store move away. It now has a dollar store in its place. It had a bank branch move away and now has no banking services in the area. And over the course of the last 20-something years, it's really has like zero positive impact, economic impact, especially since it got annexed. And I just wanted to convey that as part of that question that was raised. Really hope to get more answers. I know that there's a lot of conversations going around, but I think it's important that the council gets feedback on some of these questions because they are really critical. The city of Burien has made it clear that it is very concerned about the cumulative impact involving the SR 509 corridor completion project. The Washington Department of Transportation has estimated that at peak hours, the fully completed freeway will carry anywhere from 3,700 to nearly 4,700 vehicles per hour. And yet the port asserts in its environmental impact statement that the corridor completion project will, and I'm quoting here, reduce existing criteria pollution levels through a reduction in vehicle miles traveled. This just seems like a sleight of hand, like a change of pace there. Thousands of people's lives if people live and work near SR 509 in Burien, they will have to endure significant increase in noise and air pollution. How are they to interpret this conclusion as anything other than a slap in the face?
I highly recommend going to the public meetings and asking the people who worked on that portion of the environmental review. And getting the answers directly from the consultants.
Mayor, I have other questions, but I'll defer to other colleagues.
Yeah, does anyone else have questions? Councilmember DeVito?
Hello. We have a growing body of research that suggests ultrafine particles could be a major public health problem for airport communities. We're seeing in the environmental impact statement that there's limited and conflicting data and insufficient context. Will the port commit to studying the issue further and finding out more ways that ultrafine particles might be affecting our communities underneath the flight path?
The Port of Seattle actually, as part of our SEA Stakeholder Advisory Roundtable, put together an agenda of 7 priorities to pursue at the federal level. One of those was a federal study of ultrafine particles. That's what would be needed in order to move the dial when it comes to the standards that are applied. And Burien was actually part of that lobbying effort.
Any additional questions? Before we go to second questions, anyone else have questions? I would like to follow up a question, a little bit of a follow-up on the ultrafine particle question. At the point when ultrafine particle study does take place, is the airport preparing for the possibility that it does do harm and that the harm has accumulated over many decades by that time?
There are 2 aspects to that entire thing. There is correlation and there's causation. And there is no definitive causation proven relative to exposure from ultrafine particles that are directly related to aviation. Ultrafine particles in general are problematic, and that's where the research needs to happen.
So until the research happens, the research is happening on an epidemiological scale in cities near places where ultrafine particles are emitted. Any additional questions? Councilmember Mendez, you had your hand up.
Sure, thank you. Another significant concern that Burien residents deal with every day is the decibel level. I was just at Sea-Tac Park, which is right on the border of the city of Burien, on Saturday for soccer for my 3-year-old, and planes are flying right overhead. And of course, I have friends who live in Boulevard Park and other neighborhoods that are directly under the flight path. I'm told folks get used to it. I'm privileged to live in a neighborhood that doesn't have that constant flights overhead, but boy, do I notice it when I'm there. And you literally have to break up conversations about every 30 to 60 seconds to let a plane overhead just have a conversation. So regarding decibels, the FAA has continued to use the outdated decibel averaging measurement of 65 dNL as its threshold for designated high noise zones near airports. The Environmental Protection Agency actually says 55 dNL is the limit for safe noise level outdoors. And then the World Health Organization standard is now 40 decibels. The FAA, in a noise policy review issued in 2023, acknowledged that communities are not experiencing the benefits from newer, quieter technology and operations from quieter aircraft because of the substantial increase in aircraft operations over U.S. airspace. The proposed airport expansion will add some 350 takeoffs and landings every single day, to a daily average exceeding 1,500. So the port positions itself as an environmental champion. Isn't it time your agency takes an aggressive public stand for a major overhaul of a federal noise standards, rather than continuing to operate under rules that guarantee greater harm to people in the cities near the airport?
I'm glad you brought that up, since on the START agenda was getting the FAA to change its noise standard to look at other standards other than the 65 DNL. It's when we partner with the communities to be able to go try and change federal policy, which is where everything's driven from, is when we actually make some progress. And we greatly appreciate that partnership with all of the communities that belong to START and the Highline Forum.
Further questions? I saw Deputy Mayor Garcia's hand first.
Thanks, Mayor. I worked in banking for a number of years and worked in economic development. I am here because I came through the airport as an immigrant. I am very aware of the impact, especially economically, that the airport and the port have on our region. And I know that it seems that is the single biggest reason that the proposed expansion is being made, is to sustain the airport as an economic engine for the Pacific Northwest. The port argues that airport impacted cities benefit from this. Your own analysis conducted by a company called Community Attributes clearly shows that Burien does not. According to their data, on-site airport activity generated more than 34,000 jobs for the airport adjacent cities in 2023, but only about 700 of those jobs were in Burien. Of nearly $8 million in local tax revenues, Burien received 230,000. On-site airport activity accounted for 0.6% of Burien's GDP. That is by far the lowest share in all of South King County. Yet, Burien probably sustains the greatest share of economic, environmental, and public health damage from the airport operations. That is unacceptable disparity, which is not nearly offset by programs that the port has in place to address the problem. What additional measures will the port take to better support this city and its people?
I can't speak to the CAI study. I suggest that you have a conversation with the experts at the open houses, and also review the material. I've heard this brought up in another venue, and I'm not sure that the characterization is quite right, but I strongly suggest having a conversation with the people who actually did the work.
Thank you.
Just for clarity, would that be just the port commissioners or the folks for that did the work?
The people who did the work, I don't know if there'll be people from CAI there, or the people who worked on that element of the economic element from the study, but they'll be at the open houses. There'll also be 2 online open houses, one on June 30th and one on July 9th.
Thank you. And I saw a hand from Councilmember Schilling, who has not spoken yet.
Dave, thanks for being here, especially considering that, we've done a lot over the last decade and more to advocate on behalf of this community in regards to the expansion of the airport. But I'm curious, because I don't know, does the Sea-Tac airport have an official position on a second regional airport? Was there an official position that Sea-Tac airport took with the Washington State, I can't remember the exact title of the coordinating group, but it was something like Washington State Transportation Coordinating Committee for placement of a second airport or something like that. Has Sea-Tac had an official position that's been public on that? And if so, what is it? And if not, why hasn't Sea-Tac been more vocal or supportive of potential of another regional airport to reduce the impact that's clearly happening in our backyard?
Good question. The Port Commission has made clear that actually at a commission meeting, and I forget how many years ago now, I want to say about 3 years ago, if not before, that they support the siting of an additional commercial aviation airport. The Port of Seattle doesn't have any direct impact on it. It's a state legislative decision in terms of funding and designating additional airport capacity in conjunction with the local jurisdictions and their master plans. The Commercial Aviation Coordinating Commission, the first one, basically got to the 11th hour on citing a greenfield airport, and the governor pulled the plug because of the opposition that they were hearing from the communities where that was being discussed. The establishment of the Commercial Aviation Working Group, which is currently in existence, looks at all alternatives, including high-speed rail and other things. But to date, they've not come forward with any recommendations on what is going to be an alternative. In terms of Sea-Tac itself, excuse me, SEA, let that slip out. SEA, the need exceeds what we can build, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't build what we need to build. We are physically constrained. For the Sustainable Airport Master Plan, we did not acquire any additional property, so we're not growing. We got 509 on one side, we got 518 at the north end, we've got International Boulevard on the eastern boundary. There's nowhere else to go. So the constraints essentially are physical as well as the airspace. So in the long run, it's going to take additional facilities to be able to accommodate that 107 million passengers that we anticipate going through the region. So.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Deputy Mayor Garcia, you
Thanks.
have asked 2 questions already.
I will just make comments, I guess, instead of asking a question. I'll save my questions for some of the outreach community meetings. But I would just wanted to share that I think the community meetings already established are insufficient. And a period of 60 days is insufficient. I believe some folks went to a recent commission meeting and asked for more time. I think this is a very, very big issue to discuss and share with our residents. So I ask for there to be an extension. I'm hoping to ask, I know this is not the venue for it, but so I'll plan on reaching out to commissioners directly to see if there's consideration for 120 days. The schools where everything's happening, I noticed that the only school that's hosting a community gathering is probably the second farthest school away from the airport. It would have been nice to have that community outreach meeting underneath the flight path at one of the schools there. And I we'll ask the commission to do a follow-up meeting in that flight path underneath there so they can see those impacts. Because, and I'm going to push back a little bit on some of the comments to the answers to the last question. Yes, there's a landlock of amount of land that the airport cannot expand on, right? They can't annex into the city technically or into other cities, but there has been growth. There has been growth, and there's literally a report sharing that there's going to be growth of more flights. Engineers are trained to do that growth within the same land that you're carrying. We're using the same landlocked issues to address housing. We have the same fixed amount of land, so there will be ways to expand on this, and these expansions are going to be very hard, more than on Burien than any other city. So I just really wanted to convey that and hope that I will get hopefully some collaboration from the commissioners when I reach out in hopes to getting more time to do outreach to all of our city. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to follow up on two questions. The first one, Councilmember Schilling asked about new airports, and then in your response, you talked about sort of the geographical realities of where the Sea-Tac airport is right now. That can't go north, can't go south, can't go east, can't go west. But more flights will be coming into it, and the plan now maxes out at a certain point. What happens after that? What is assuming that right now we don't have a location for another airport? If we suddenly get one, it's decades away from between talking about it and becoming a reality. Flights are still building. When we hit the maximum that we have now, are we gonna start another runway? Is there reassurance that this isn't, you're not gonna be back, or your counterpart won't be back 10 years from now asking for something else that echoes and rhymes with us?
There's no room for another runway. The whole fourth runway thing is a myth, okay? It's not going to happen. There's nowhere to go. When you've got major freeway on one side, when you got a major roadway on the other side, and all the runways are north-south, it's not going to happen, okay? In terms of the number of passengers, what'll happen is that just as it is now, you're going to wind up cramming that many more people through the same facility. So what's going to happen is the experience is going to deteriorate. Aircraft will wind up having to wait on taxiways. There won't be an adequate number of gates. So unless they build another facility, that's eventually what will happen. Airlines have gotten more lean in terms of the approach that they've taken. They've upgauged their aircraft, which means that they're using larger aircraft that can hold more people. There were actually fewer flights last year than there was in 2019 by a significant amount. And yet we had a record number of passengers last year. So the airlines find a way to move people. It may mean that they fly at different times as well. There are times where it's not quite as busy. But again, it depends on the business model that the airlines have. They're the ones who decide based upon the demand from their customers on when they want to fly and where they need to go. So.
All right, any further questions? Well, I also want to recognize, Dave, that you're going to every city in the area giving this presentation, and that you're hearing from all of us, and I see that you're writing it down. I appreciate that.
But this isn't, whatever I take back is informative for us, but it's not formal on the record. So it's really important that whatever comments you do have, please share it through the website, at the public meetings, or snail mail for that matter.
And I was gonna invite you to stay after, because I know that there are people here who may be giving public comment about the airport. But I also wanted to let them know that their public comment is coming to the Burien City Council, and that this is a second opportunity for you to remind us that that is not going to go in the SAMP records. So
right. And I appreciate your gracious offer, but I actually have to head to Tukwila now. So, but thank you.
All right. Anything else? All right, well, thank you. And will we be hearing back? You said you wouldn't answer Councilmember Mendez's question right now. Is that answer forthcoming at a future time, or did I miss, did I miss a part of that?
The question regarding providing financial assistance.
Yes.
There's conversations going on in other venues that I think are driven by legal challenges to the NEPA.
Thank you. All right.
Mayor, if I could interrupt for a minute, this is City Manager Larson. I'm going to ensure the council, the questions you asked tonight, we're going to get those into a file, and we'll formally submit each of those questions to the Port of Seattle so they get into the record themselves. So.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And the city clerk will now announce public comment guidelines, and we will move into our public comment section.
Public comment guidelines are summarized on the screen and can be viewed in Section 5 of the Council Rules of Order. The deadline to sign up to speak or submit written comments for this meeting was 5:30 p.m. Community members may state their name and city of residence and speak for 2 minutes or less. The total time for the comment period is 30 minutes. At this time, staff will share the public comment sign-up list. For those in person, please speak at the lectern. For those on Zoom, please prepare to unmute yourself. There are 11 community members signed up to speak. The first person signed up to speak is Kelsey Van Hee.
Hi, Council. Tonight's agenda includes a discussion of a data center moratorium. I'm here to speak my strong support for this. In a community already impacted by flight path and highway noise and pollution, a hyperscale or other large data center would be yet another source of environmental harm, noise pollution, and strain on the power grid. However, this conversation should not stop at a data center moratorium. Banning these data centers and continuing to use or promote AI just says that we are fine inflicting these harms on other communities that we would not accept in our own. We need to pair this with a clear policy on responsible AI use that considers things like data privacy, ethical use of intellectual property, and at least tracks our own environmental impacts. Finally, Burien is proud to be part of a creative district that celebrates local arts and community. We should show that community respect by hiring real artists and graphic designers and not using AI graphics for tentpole events like our World Cup celebrations. I hope that you'll consider requiring city contractors to stop using AI to avoid paying local artists. I do understand this is an additional cost and we're in a budget-constrained environment, but I think it's important that we respect local artisans. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Brian Davis.
Mayor, Council, Mr. Larson, good to see everybody. Brian Davis, for the record, I'm from the Burien Airport Committee, but I'm speaking for myself tonight. Thank you for your commitment to fighting the Port of Seattle's proposal that will do additional and poorly compensated damage to Burien's well-being, to our physical and mental health, and to our economic viability. I'd like to call to your attention a petition for a public hearing on the port's environmental impact statement. There is a provision for such a hearing under state law, and if anybody present would care to sign that petition, I have one, and I'll be outside the building for a few minutes after the public comment period ends. We'll have it on hand tomorrow when the Burien and Des Moines Airport Committees hold a joint meeting up on the 3rd floor at City Hall. That'll be at 6 p.m. On Thursday, we'll circulate the petition in 2 places. One is the air purifier giveaway here at City Hall from 2 to 6 p.m. And then we'll be at a community event that we're doing on Thursday night. And that one is to help petition aside. That's to help people get ready for the port's upcoming open houses on the expansion plan. That will be at Glacier Middle School and Sea-Tac from 5:30 until 7 o'clock. We're hoping for some strong community turnout at these open houses and generally down the stretch in the process. Public comment closes on July 21st. The port's proposal is deeply flawed. We would hope that they hear that from a lot of people. The key point for me is that this is great for a lot of communities in the Seattle area, which profit greatly from growth at Sea-Tac Airport, but it is not okay for Burien, which receives very little of the benefit and a great deal of the harm. I have a moment to make one other suggestion. It will not count as official comment, but the port commissioners need to hear directly from people who will be adversely affected by this proposal. When the review process ends, the commissioners, you heard Dave Kaplan say this, they will formally vote to approve these projects. I'll remind you that they are, as elected public officials, accountable to you as voters. You can get everybody's names off the Port's website. Their email template is lastname.firstinitial@portseattle.org. And they need to know that you expect them to do
Mr.
right
Davis.
by Burien. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Our next speaker is Emily Enlow Hood.
Hi, my name's Emily Enlow Hood. I am also a member of the airport committee, but I'm speaking tonight as a resident of Burien. I listened tonight to the port's presentation and I am left with more questions than answers. I would encourage everyone in our community to attend one of the public meetings and to participate in the port's public process, demanding answers to some of those questions that were not answered tonight. The voices of those living every day with the impacts of the airport deserve to have our voices heard. I'm also here tonight to ask the council to continue to ask the port, thank you for asking tonight, to give the public 90 days to respond to the draft EIS. This is a highly technical document and we need more time to review and respond. Rushing this process undercuts the port's purported commitment to equity. Speaking of environmental impact, council has on their agenda tonight a possible moratorium on data centers. I do find it strange that the city would even consider trying to attract a data center to Burien, considering they have well-documented environmental impacts and questionable economic benefits. I also see that this would require economic development staff to delay other work that could be done to attract economic development that could benefit the city at a time when we are in a budget crisis. Please pass this moratorium. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jennifer Fishamba.
Sorry. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Council. I'm Jennifer Fichamba, and I actually live right next to 509 and watch planes take off every day. I first want to say thank you for all the work that has gone into hosting Summer of Soccer in Burien. My son and I watched Brazil Saturday and our beloved Ecuador yesterday. Sadly, they lost. My son also is a recipient of someone who participated in Ray Foundation activities. The whole reason he majored in communications is thanks to the Ray Foundation. I want to give a huge shout out to Jose, who was the MC of both days that we came. All right. I also want to encourage council to place a moratorium on data centers. They are a massive environmental problem. I have read so many devastating stories on the impact to our drinking water. We don't need AI to create flyers, but we do need clean water to live. Finally, I want to say I appreciate the comments from Councilmember Mendez, Deputy Mayor Garcia, Councilmember DeVito, and Mayor Moore pushing back on the port and their lack of answers, or vague answers at that, to some of the questions. It speaks volumes to really how the port cares about Burien. When I was in 8th grade, my friend Heidi McDougall's house was bought by the port, so they can expand. They will just buy our property and expand. I've witnessed it in my lifetime. I appreciate your request for an extension to community comment period to 90 days. It's really important that we really keep our community in mind regarding data centers and expansion of the airport. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have Stephen Lamphere on virtual.
Good evening. I'm Stephen Lamphere, and I am a resident of the Upper Shorewood neighborhood. I have a comment on the data center proposal. I too am in favor of moving forward with a moratorium. And I'd like to point out a good reason for doing all of this is there was a community recently where the city council decided to go for a data center and the public didn't like it. So they went ahead and recalled every single member of the city council and moved on from there. So I'd like you to know that if you decide to invite a data center, you have a possibility that there will be repercussions from the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Omaha Sternberg.
Thank you. My name is Omaha Sternberg and I live in Burien. Thank you very much, Council, for hearing my comments. I have 3 today. The first one is about the data centers. Many people have already commented in a way that I agree with, but the information that's available is so vast that we cannot make a decision about it in, say, one council meeting. And so I think a 6-month moratorium is a very good idea in order to be able to understand exactly what the issue is. The second one is about the discussion about a possible levy. Even though I was against the levy last year at the end of November, or beginning of November, I was because of a lack of transparency and unclear language. I am still in favor of a levy to help us with our budget problems, and I would like very much to see more transparency and more clear language in a future levy. Last but not least, I wanted to comment on the SEPA. Dave Kaplan did mention that there was no significant impact on animals and plants in that SEPA. Unfortunately, when I took a look at it in just a short time, I found nothing about coho salmon. As an oceanographer, I know that coho salmon are an endangered species, and they are also killed within 3 hours of being exposed to particulate matter from rubber tires of vehicles. If we are going to increase the amount of traffic that comes in, we will increase that particulate matter, and we will increase the amount of damage and death that is done to the coho salmon, possibly even putting it out of in extinction. So I'm very happy to ask you to seriously think about this more, and for everyone else too as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Janelle Lee virtually.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members, city staff, and fellow neighbors affected by the Sustainable Airport Master Plan near-term project and the draft SEPA and EIS presentation. First, I want to say thank you, and second, everything in the first two comments from Kelsey Van Hee, Brian Davis, and the rest of the commenters. I also want to thank you, our mayor, for your work at the airport committee and all the incredibly thought out questions, comments, and concerns from the council tonight. You understand this assignment. Thank you. My name is Janelle. I'm speaking tonight as one of the Boulevard Park Burien residents who live directly underneath the flight path. And for us, this isn't an abstract policy discussion. It's a daily physical toll. We're looking at projected 30% increase in flights over the next decade. Yet it seems that the port's environmental review is not understanding the significant impact it will have to us here in Burien beneath the flight path, fundamentally disconnecting from reality. Studies consistently show that noise and ultrafine particle pollution under those paths shortens the life expectancy and damages cardiovascular health. Our lives are quite literally being cut short. Right now, our basic and existing protections are failing. Many of us have port package sound mitigation windows that are failing, degrading, and letting the noise bleed straight into our homes. I personally have not heard of any clear timeline, budget, or guarantee on when or if these will be replaced. If the port cannot fix the broken mitigation packages we have now, how can anyone justify adding 30% more flights? We cannot just accept that these flights will increase with or without construction. We need our city council to fight for legally binding enforceable protections. We need an immediate funded plan to replace failing sound insulation, real-time air quality monitoring in our neighborhoods, and if possible, a refusal to sign off on any expansion until our port takes measurable accountability for our health. Please do not let Boulevard Park be treated as a sacrifice zone. The growth of the Puget Sound cannot be on the backs of Burien residences. Hold the port accountable. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Chuck Rangel.
Thanks, Chuck. My name's Chuck Rangel. I'm here representing the Burien American Legion Post 134, originally organized in 1938. I guess that's longer than any of you been alive. I'm here for two reasons. One of them is we're going to be doing the color guard for the Burien 4th of July parade. This is the 250-year celebration of our nation. I would like to have that flag and all of the armed services flags precede the parade. In past years, recently, we've had a motorcycle group precede the parade. As a veteran, I am disgusted with that. I will be carrying that flag. And anything that stops the march of the American flag should be run over. I am asking the council, I've already talked to Debbie over at Discover Burien. She's going to talk to the motorcycle group. I want the American flag to lead the American July 4th parade. The second thing I wanted to just bring up to you is that the National Organization of American Legion has passed a resolution calling for federal, state, and local governments, as well as school boards and educational institutions, to adopt and enforce rigorous standards in civic education, ensuring that students gain a deep understanding of the U.S. Constitution, the separation of powers, civil liberties, civic duties, and the responsibilities of self-government in a free society. To that end, the National Organization has an oratorical society contest nationally. The winner gets $30,000 scholarship. It's only for high school students. Private, public, doesn't matter. High school students. Burien will be having one in 2027 at a $5,000 scholarship for any of our local students here.
So
Sorry.
we're at time. Can you send us that information? Can you send us that information? Thank you. And next we have Kirsten Cooper.
Thanks. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Kirsten Cooper, and I am a resident of North Burien, and I work outdoors at a site that is directly under the flight path in North Sea-Tac. I am also here to ask that the City Council advocate for the Port of Seattle to grant at least a 90-day public comment period for the draft EIS. Because this is a highly technical and complex document, our community needs adequate time to thoroughly review it and prepare meaningful responses. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. And next we have Lena Pace.
Good evening. This message was intended to be for both council and your guest who has departed to Tukwila. So I'll try and be brief and attempt to send what I have to say. I want to echo what somebody had said earlier about the coho salmon and highlight that there's an aquifer beneath the land that is affected, that has residents that are affected by the flight path, and that attempting to keep the recharge area of the aquifer that all of King County may depend on someday may further run that tire rub off into the stream that is currently being mapped. That's a problem. I'm going to try and read through what I wrote. I have lived under the flight path since 2019. I experienced the peace of less flight traffic during the pandemic and acclimated to the heightened traffic over time. I am grateful for every moment I am not conscious of an airplane overhead and enjoy the quiet nights, relatively quiet. I work in public transportation and am federally required to restrict my working hours so as to ensure I get adequate rest. I tolerate the noise because it's a trade-off for stable housing, and I've experienced far worse disruption to my sleep. That said, the existing noise pollution is objectively impactful, and 30% increased flight traffic is a lot. It's too much. I keep hearing that there's nothing to avoid the 30% influx. I call bullshit. Now is the time to brainstorm. Find another place for another airport, for example. Nobody wants it, but it can't be adding it into the existing 3 runways, increasing the traffic there where people are already affected, where their health has already been impacted. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. And our last speaker is Quentin Thompson.
Good evening, council members, and good evening, audience. I would like to say that I am back for the summer and the first part of September and maybe going on further, so you will be seeing me more. I noticed that we've been having some problems with our Metro Access buses again. On 152nd, that corner where it intersects there, that is very dangerous. However, I've been working with Metro to figure that out. And that's becoming a really big problem. I'm kind of disturbed because that area where I'm telling you that it's intersecting right there, that's where a lot of our buses are getting hit. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Quentin. That concludes our public comment, and we move into committee reports. Do any council members have committee reports? Deputy Mayor oh.
You got me.
Actually, I was going to relay this to you, Mayor Moore. I know we participated in the SEA PIC committee meeting. For me, I arrived late, so I just wanted to have you give the update, but that's it.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Garcia?
I have a Board of Public Health meeting this Thursday, true. So I don't have one. I reported on the last one. I've also been added to the SCA South Cities Association Equity Group. So I'll plan on reporting future meetings for that. And then for a committee that's internal, that's for our immigrant support 3 council member committee subcommittee. I've circulated some policy ideas on arrest ordinance to our council members and hope to have something brought forward at the next council meeting as a recommendation. That's all.
Thank you. I can report briefly on the PIC meeting. It was a chaotic situation in which it overlapped with the state of the county report from the county executive. And so everyone was either meeting in a room, like kind of pushing through people going in the other direction to meet in a room, which was my situation, or going to listen to it somewhere else. But issues that were covered, as Deputy Mayor Garcia pointed out, the nominating committee did fill seats, including appointing Deputy Mayor Garcia to the Health Board. I'm a member of the water quality, and I've talked, I think, extensively about increasing sewer rates, but solid waste division rates are also anticipated to increase by 8.5% annually and across fee types. And the PIC is concerned about that continuing rate increase, especially in the context of other utilities, and is submitting a letter of concern that is currently being drafted. There was also a discussion, not specifically relevant to Burien, but I think in the PIC committee, everything's relevant to all the cities because it's about coordinating. And so there was a good deal of discussion about the flood response to the December 2025 flooding and what would have worked better and what worked really well. And one of the key feedbacks was communication was coming from too many directions at once and crossing each other. So the SCA feels like it may have a role in determining a single channel for emergency communications of that type. So that was primarily the PIC meeting. The PIC also took a position on the county transportation committees. I may have that name wrong, but the 12.5% pass-through of road levies to cities from monies that were levied to King County. And the position was, if you're going to pass this, cities would like the 12.5% pass-through, and that did pass. However, there was a request for a volume, a cap of 15% on any one city, and that did not pass. I also wanted to report that Burien Airport Committee and Des Moines Airport Committee hosted a joint committee meeting on June 8th, and we'll host another one tomorrow, June 16th. Tomorrow's meeting will be hosted upstairs in the Burien City Hall. The June 8th one was hosted in Des Moines and their council chambers. And this was to discuss coordinated responses to the SEPA process. One topic that came up, and I'm looking, City Manager, is this an appropriate time to talk about the possibility of a public hearing?
Yes, it is, Mayor. If you want to endeavor, that'd be great. I can give an update if you like as well, but go ahead. You're doing well.
Yeah, we heard from Brian Davis and during public comment mentioning petition. The public can submit a petition, but another way to request a public hearing is for 2 impacted municipalities to submit a request for a public hearing. The timeline is very short. I do not remember the date, but is it June?
It's coming up very soon. It's within 30 days of the initial release of the SEPA. So I believe it's coming up this week, actually.
It's before our next council meeting. So I would like to see if there is support from council to request a public hearing. There is support from council to request a public hearing. In order for this to happen, another affected municipality would also have to make that request. But I thank council for their strong and immediate response to that.
If I could add to that, Mayor, this is City Manager Larson. I will endeavor to make sure that the Port of Seattle gets your request in formal writing. I'll get that out tomorrow.
Thank you. And with that, we go into council reports. Councilmember Andrade.
Thank you. We had our flag raising for our Burien fan zone. I'm sure Deputy Mayor will be talking a little bit more about that. Pretty fun. Great to see everybody come out to view that. I do want to thank staff members, Chris, Lorraine, Deborah George at Discover Burien, and the other staff members who've been working on this for so long and very hard. So BurienFanZone.com if you want additional information for additional games. I also attended the Stormfest for a 2nd year in a row. It's always fun to see the students learning outside, getting hands-on experience with their environmental education. I know I heard from a couple of the teachers that it's a great time frame for them to have this outdoors, just given that, you know, towards the end of the school year, students start to get a little antsy. June 4th happened after the June 1st Pride Proclamation, but June 4th, I was honored to participate in our Pride flag raising. As an elected official, that flag raising was pretty special for me. I went from going to prom with a group of queer individual to getting kicked out because of my queer friends who were, according to the chaperones, we were making a scene. So it went from that to standing in front of City Hall raising a pride flag as an elected official. It was great that it was our 10-year anniversary. It was something that I would have never imagined me being a part of. Then followed the 3-day Pride celebration. Unfortunately, we had monsoon rain at one point, but given that, we still had great participation and great to see all the people come out in celebration of that. While I say that, we had 3 events in our community. We had a Pride proclamation, we had a Pride flag raising at City Hall, and then we had a Pride celebration. And I want to make sure that I call out that not every city has that. I spoke to an individual in, I believe, Federal Way, who let me know that they were actually not going to be bringing some of those events in the same way that we have. We had 3 ways of recognizing and honoring that. And again, we're very fortunate to live in a city that's open to all of that. So thank you, City of Burien, and all of City Council as well for being a part of that. Several of us attended the King County, King County State of the County event with King County Executive Gurmai Zahilai. It's great to hear about the work happening across the county and reconnect with other elected officials and community leaders. There were a few speakers, including Mayor Jim Farrell, Mayor Dana Ralph, but the one that stood out in my mind was a young man by the name of Sam from Speak with Purpose. His message was beautiful, and young people aren't just our future. And if this person is part of our future, I am very hopeful, and I'm glad to have him be a part of our future. We also celebrated a ribbon cutting ceremony for Ala Fair Antiques as they expanded their space to include now a beer garden. It's a beautiful day for a beer garden, so everybody go enjoy on 152nd down the street. And finally, I attended the Flag Day ceremony that they held at Burien Elks Lodge. As we approached the 250th anniversary of our country, it was great to hear more about the history of our flag and reflect on what it represents to the many people. And then one last final comment. This weekend, we have the annual Strawberry Festival and Father's Day Car Show, so it's going to happen in those 2 days. So hope to see you there.
Thank you. Any other council reports? Deputy Mayor Garcia.
Thanks, Mayor. It's been a busy time period. Had a very fun, successful Burien Copita Kids Tournament on June 6th. Just want to thank our staff. Did a fantastic job in collaborating with the Latino Civic Alliance in putting together 6 youth tournament kids, 6 youth soccer teams, in a tournament that included vendors, businesses, nonprofits. School district was there. Over 20 vendors. They actually had a not a halftime because there were 6 games, but they had a youth group, a do a performance. And it was just really well attended. So I just want to say thanks. It was a fantastic event at Highline Stadium, the Highline High School Stadium. Just want to share thanks and appreciation to the Highline School District because they made sure that we had access to their audio speaker system, which made a huge difference in being able to inform folks about all the different programs and vendors and just give people excited updates about the games with the kids. Attended the Pride flag racing event ceremony. Also went to the Regional Gun Safety Office gun lockbox giveaway. We held that here next to the library. The giveaway over, I think it got up to like 100 gun lock boxes. Shared information that though there's been improvements over the last 2-3 years on gun violence regionally in a percentage that has decreased around 18%. It's still, there is an issue of having 1 in 3 households that have a gun that don't have a gun lock box. So it's still something that's critical. I did attend the State of the County presentation, and one of the key things that stuck with me is that the execs mentioned that they were going to invest an additional $5 million towards the Regional Gun Safety Office for these programs, which I think is fantastic. The number 1 leading cause of death for our youth is gun violence. Also attended I went to a new restaurant, a Samoan restaurant. I went to a private event and attended a Samoan restaurant on First Avenue Maui Center. So if you've ever had and never tried Polynesian food, highly recommend it. Check it out. And I did want to report that there is still active ICE kidnappings of our residents. There was 3 in the last 2 weeks that have been confirmed here in Burien streets, as well as today I communicated with a parent volunteer at a PTA for Hazel Valley who shared that Hazel Valley family had their dad taken from there, and the parents and the PTA are working together to help the family with food assistance and rent assistance, as this happened just a week ago. I think that's all I had. Something.
Thank
Oh,
you.
sorry. Did attend obviously our Burien soccer celebration flag raise. It was a fantastic event. It also had the kickoff of the soccer tournament Thursday here next to the library, which overlapped with our farmers market. It was fantastic. It is great to hear the joy of kids playing, especially when we are going through some challenging times. And then Sunday went to the one that they held at the end of the street here on 152nd. We had closed down a part of it, had this screen on the middle of the street. Folks were sitting, restaurants had tables out. It's been just really, really great. So thanks to the economic development staff. I saw you guys over the weekend at a lot of these events. So thank you so much. You guys have been killing it on this, or having done a really good job with these events. Thank you.
Thank you. Other council reports? I can give a little bit of a report. I heartily concur with Councilmember Andrade's evaluation of the speakers at the State of the County event. Just hearing a young person find their feet under them, starting out not quite sure, and then just nailing it, just getting there. It was a beautiful thing to watch. I also want to mention, I went to a discussion of the port budget on Friday, the 12th, and I was fortunate enough to share a table with Casey, and who spoke very eloquently really about what budgets look like everywhere. And I think kind of spoke for the room that city budgets are they have very limited ways that they can draw revenue. They have a lot of responsibilities and obligations, and that we're kind of all looking at that right now. And the port in a lot of ways kind of had ups and downs, and is also at the mercy of the greater world around us. I am not obsessed with airports, but I do want to let people know that Glacier Middle School on June 17th is having a session hosted by No Added Harm. It's called the Community Power Night from 5:30 to 7 to discuss and kind of build narrative for telling our stories at the port listening sessions. So this is going to be both developing a personal story about airport impacts, and also an opportunity to talk about what priorities might be most helpful and important to bring up in those situations. And I also want to mention that there will be an air purifier giveaway here at Council Chambers on Thursday, June 18th from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. And that's my report. And that takes us to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Council members, I want to remind the community that there is currently a vacant seat on the city council. And as of this afternoon, we have not received any applications. However, I'm here to inspire others to take a look at this. The deadline to apply for the position is Friday, June 26th. And application forms, or an application form, is available on the city's website. Or you can get a hard copy by picking it up here at City Hall at the front counter. Or if that doesn't work for you and you need some assistance, just call us and staff will be delighted to assist you in obtaining an application. We can even mail it out to you. So we want to see at least a few applications, if not more. And so that council has a good, solid choice amongst the group of applicants. That concludes my report, Mayor.
I'm,
I'll be happy to add that. The phone number for City Hall is 206-241-4647. Thank you.
thank you. And that gets us to the consent agenda, or actually, are there any questions?
No question, just to say thank you, Quentin.
That gets us to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, please raise your hand or say aye. All right, it is unanimous. The consent agenda is approved, and we move to the business agenda. Our first item will be an introduction to resolution number 535, approving the South King Housing and Homelessness Partnership, or SKIP, 2027 budget and work plan.
All right. Good evening, council. Great to be with you all tonight. It's nice and warm outside and it's freezing in here, so we'll try and be speedy. I'm Anya Zupancic. I'm your human services manager, and we're here tonight to talk about resolution number 535, talking about SKIP. South King Housing and Homelessness Partners is lovingly referred to as SKIP. We're going to be here to talk about the 2027 work plan and budget. Liz Stead and I get the opportunity to serve on SKIP's executive board and staff work group respectively, and have the joy of working with partners across the region to advance SKIP's work plan and mission. And part of that is that we get to be supported by the incredible SKIP staff. And so we are here joined tonight with Dorsal Plants, who I'm actually going to turn over to give you some more context about what is included tonight in resolution 535.
Good evening, council, residents of Burien. It's good to be here this evening. My name is Dorsal Plants. I use he, his pronouns, and I'm the acting executive manager for the South King Housing and Homeless Partners, or SKIP for short. I'm really excited this evening to present the SKIP Executive Board's recommended 2027 work plan and budget, which I believe can be found in your agenda packet starting around page 43. This is an annual process required by our interlocal agreement, but it also provides me an opportunity to share in some of the great work that SKIP will be doing in 2027. See if this works. Oh, technology has not been my friend on Monday. Can I do next slide? Oh, okay. For those of you who are new to our work, SKIP is your sub-regional affordable housing consortium formed in 2019 and made up of 11 South King County cities, including Burien and King County. You can see the member jurisdictions listed here on the slide. We are a unified, coordinated, and collaborative coalition funding the construction and preservation of affordable housing right here in South King County, in addition to supporting the subregion's work and cross-jurisdictional collaboration towards addressing our shared affordable housing challenges. This is a meaningful opportunity to work together with neighboring cities to make an impact on the subregion's affordable housing shortage. And to date, we have pulled over $18 million to fund the construction or the rehabilitation of family buildings here in South King County. You can see our mission statement listed here on the slide. And the SKIP interlocal agreement requires that the legislative bodies of each of the SKIP member jurisdictions take action and adopt the SKIP Executive Board's approved work plan and budget before it becomes effective in the following year. Just a little bit on the development of the work plan and budget. The work plan and budget reflects the goals and priorities of the SKIP Executive Board and incorporate the review and feedback of the SKIP Community Advisory Board, the Staff Working Group, and the Soquio Long Range Planners Group. The advisory board is made up of community members from South King County along with housing experts, while our staff work group and Soquio group are made up of staff from each of the member jurisdictions that provide guidance to SKIP. In January, SKIP staff administered a survey to the executive board, and we used that survey to develop a draft that was further reviewed by the community advisory board, the staff work group, and Soquio. That draft was then reviewed at our March workshop, and we took further refinement from that March workshop, and the work plan and budget was adopted on May 15th by the executive board. You can find a finalized version in your agenda packet this evening. The four goals of the SCIP work plan remain the same in 2027 as in 2026. They include funding the expansion and preservation of affordable housing, developing policies to expand and preserve affordable housing, serving as an advocate for South King County, and managing the operations and administration of SCIP. Each goal in the work plan has corresponding actions that support the work of that goal, and most of the goals you'll see in the work plan are continuing the work from previous years. In addition to the corresponding actions, each goals also have an indicator that we use to measure the progress towards those goals. Those indicators are used on the annual report that SCIP issues each year. The full work plan and action items, as I mentioned, are included in your agenda packet. This table shows the state's Office of Financial Management population data through 2025 by each member jurisdiction. Just a quick note that the population data here for King County includes all of unincorporated King County, not just South King County. So it is a little bit higher than what we see inside of the South King County area. You may recall that SCIP's operating budget is funded solely from SCIP member contributions, which are based on population tiers, and I'll be touching on those with the next couple of slides. For the 2027 budget, we did use the 2025 population data to establish those tiers because the 2026 population data will not be published until the end of June. You will see here in a moment, but no member jurisdictions will be changing population tiers this year, but we did continue to see population growth in South King County. The 2027 SCIP operating budget totals $525,008. 68% of SCIP's expenses go toward the salary and benefits of its 2 full-time staff. And while the total budget did increase by approximately $23,000, that growth was driven exclusively by cost of living adjustments for personnel or in IT support. There is nearly a 22% decrease in professional services, which reflect a deliberate shift towards building internal capacity and reducing reliance on external vendors. The professional services include items like our advisory board compensation, our contract attorney expenses for the Housing Capital Fund awardees, our third-party application reviews for the Housing Capital Fund, along with professional development, travel, and other fees or licenses required for the administration of SCIP. Another thing to note is that SCIP does continue to spend down previous cost savings and a fund balance to mitigate any additional member contribution increases. And then finally on the budget, in 2025, the SCIP Executive Board adopted a reserve policy to set aside interest earned on the Housing Capital Fund contributions prior to being distributed to the awardees. Interest earned in 2025 to be applied to the reserve in 2027 is a total of $544,744. This means that the total reserve in 2027 will include $1,026,983, which you can see noted at the bottom of the budget in your agenda packet. These funds would be used in future years to assist if there's an economic recession or if member cities were to choose not to raise operational contributions. This slide here shows the population tiers proposed for 2027. The SCIP Executive Board is recommending that we maintain the contributions at the 2026 level. I do want to make a note that you'll see in the 2027 work plan that part of our work that year will include exploring opportunities to expand either our capacity or to look at the growth of SCIP over the next 5 years. So it is likely in part of preparation for the 2028 budget, we will need to talk about looking at increasing our operational contributions. We're saying that now because SCIP is making a firm commitment that we will have extensive conversations with each of the member cities before doing any further raises to our operational contributions. So in conclusion, per the requirements of the interlocal agreement between Burien and SCIP, SCIP is seeking your support this evening to adopt the 2027 work plan and the 2027 operating budget. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Council, there is a recommended motion. Councilmember Schill.
I move to place this item on the consent agenda of the next regular meeting.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to place this item on the consent agenda for the next regular meeting. Do you care to speak to your motion?
No questions.
I did have some questions.
Okay.
First, thanks for the presentation. I know there's a lot happening. I just wanted to see if you could share a little bit into any potential impacts from the Regional Housing Authority going through some transition. We did hear about that transition from the King County Exec at the state of the county, but I just wanted to, and then I generally have a good concept of the separation between SCIP and that, but just wanted to hear directly from you for general awareness or any potential impact, and will there be, that's it, I'll just leave it.
Yeah, it's a question that's come up at several presentations, so I definitely know that the question is out there. SCIP does not have a direct relationship with KCRHA in the sense that we have any direct projects that we are tied together or anything like that. I do maintain a relationship with KCRHA as part of like serving as an advocate for South King County, and so we have a working relationship. I don't anticipate any direct implications towards SCIP directly. Some of the projects that we fund will have some questions. And as far as like potential impacts, right now, one of the ones that we're working with other public funders to kind of identify is KCRHA right now is used to fulfill a requirement for a lot of public funders where there's a requirement that a local body has to verify that the project is consistent with the local homelessness plans. The Regional Homeless Authority has for the last few years served as that body. It's my understanding as of a couple of days ago that they're still going to serve that role for the SCIP Capital Fund this year. So that's probably the most direct impact.
Thank you. Glad I asked.
Other questions? Well, I don't have any questions either, which means that was a good presentation. I think if we're all kind of just ready to vote. It's been getting to know SCIP over the last few years and watching construction come into place that may not have been possible without SCIP has been it's been really eye-opening and gratifying. So thank you very much for the work that you do.
And
yeah.
If I could just share one interesting fact I was looking up. We've been doing our capital fund since 2022. The city of Burien has had a project apply every year since we have started our housing capital fund, and potentially that will continue through this year.
All right. Good to hear. Thank you. And with that, it has been moved and seconded to place this motion, to place this item on the consent agenda at the next regular meeting. All those in favor, please raise your hand or say aye. Everybody, so it is unanimous. You will be on our consent agenda for next week. Thank you so much. And that, how is council doing? Do people want a 5-minute break or? Yes. I'm going to propose a 5-minute break. All right, the meeting is reconvened at 7:35 PM. And our next topic is discussion of budget amendment ordinance number 904 in order to close out federal forfeiture funds and turn over balances to King County's Sheriff's Office.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm actually combining my next two agenda bill items on one ordinance number for the budget amendment. But I wanted to separate the issues as they're completely different. In May of 2026, we received a phone call from the Department of Justice with regards to federal forfeiture turnover funds that Burien has historically received for confiscated cash from drug busts and federal activities related to that. And these funds are highly restricted in how they can be used, and Burien's been collecting them and working with our local department on using it for training or any kind of equipment or devices needed for drug trafficking and that type of work. So the Department of Justice just realized that we were a contract city and along with Shoreline and Sea-Tac. So they pulled a meeting together with King County Sheriff's Department, Shoreline and Sea-Tac and Burien in May and discussed those funds. And they indicated that in 2018, other states that have contract city police departments, they made a determination that only the police departments themselves should get those funds directly, and they should work in conjunction with the city that they work for, that the city's contract with, to spend those funds out. But at the end of the day, as long as those funds are spent within the boundaries of the federal regulations in the uniform guidance, they're happy. And as long as those funds are going to the directly to the sheriff's department. So we had this meeting with Tom and his team, and Jason King from the King County Sheriff's Department, the chief budget officer there, said that he will work with the cities to find a tracking mechanism for the funds that are directly related from work done in Burien with the Burien PD, and then work at tracking how those expenses go out. So the goal is to have the current process, but just through the King County Department instead of directly through Burien. So hopefully we'll be able to work something out that will have a say in how that money gets used for our local department. So they had requested that once we finalize all of the expenses we have going out of there for this year, that we need to turn over the remaining funds to King County and in that process, we will close out those two funds. We have a federal drug enforcement forfeiture fund and the federal criminal forfeiture fund. And it's about $143,000 in total that we'll be turning over to them to manage. Any questions on that?
I was going to ask if we could pause for questions between the two, and then is the recommendation that then we make a motion after both?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions on this portion? Your explanation clarified for me the question I had, which is, are we losing the money or is it being administered?
It'll just be
elsewhere?
administered through King County.
Thank you.
The second surprise that we received recently, the state of Washington reached out to me. They indicated that in real estate transactions, often REIT is collected by the county through the title and escrow, and the transactions may not necessarily be a sale, but maybe a transfer of property of some sort, or the commercial agency may request an audit of the transaction, and sometimes in these instances, the state will then perform the audit and review the transactions and refund the corporate entities the REIT funding. And they discovered that there's about $171,926 of transactions that were reimbursed, one dated back in 2022 and one of them in 2023. They had recouped some of it through another form of audit of only about 17,000. So because it's taking a long time to recoup the 172,000, they were requesting that we just reimburse them for those overpayments or for those refunds. I said, okay, we just have to do a budget amendment since we don't have anything budgeted for that. This money goes into our Public Works Capital Projects Fund. So all of our REIT money goes in there and then it gets transferred over to the capital project or Public Works Capital Reserve Fund. And then those funds, once collected, are budgeted typically to go over the capital project program for Public Works. So we had to increase the budget for that for 172,000 to reimburse the state for those refunded amounts. Any question on that? Okay.
Councilmember Schilling.
I move to place this budget amendment ordinance number 904 on the consent agenda of the next regular meeting.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded to place budget amendment ordinance number 904 on the consent agenda of the next regular meeting. I think I'm looking for hands for any discussion.
No additional
Go.
questions, just good to do the house cleaning and make it official.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for keeping us
In compliance.
in compliance.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank
it's
you.
appreciated. All those in favor, please raise your hand or say aye. We do have unanimous consent on this. So it will be placed on the consent agenda. And the next item is D, discussion of possible data center moratorium. And do we have Anne Marie?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi.
Good evening, Mayor Moore, Deputy Mayor Garcia, council members. Thank you for having us here. I have been working with both Anne Marie, City Attorney, and Chris Craig, the Economic Development Manager, to start looking at a request that the council made of us last week, or your last meeting, to come back and talk about a potential for a data center moratorium to provide staff time and capacity to learn more about the issue and what may or may not be something that the city would want to enter into. Could we have the next slide, please? We're going to talk to you a little bit about three things. One are about what are the existing regulations that are in the land use code that may potentially allow for the siting of a data center at this time. The zoning code allows for the idea that there's a use that wasn't thought of previously that may come in to ask, can we be sited in a certain location? And those are usually things that we just haven't thought of. You know, the code doesn't always keep up with everything. We're not as nimble as we want to be. So one example that frequently has happened in the past or came to me at one point was doggy daycare. Nobody had thought of a doggy daycare, so there was no line item for doggy daycare. So the code provides some general allowances for the director to make some decisions if in case a use is not specified. In our code, the use is not specified in any of our zoning districts. So since we don't have that specified, there's two potential opportunities for us to look at it, and we have certain criterion that we follow to make that decision. In most of the city, the decision would be made by the director of the community development department. So in that case, me. And how I would make that decision is I would look at different criteria around, is this consistent with what's around it? Is there going to be an impact? Is there something else in this zone that's allowed that has very consistent impacts? So maybe hours of business are similar. The amount of people coming in and out would be similar. All of those are going to go into any decision that is made. The industrial zoning district has a little bit different qualification, and in that case, you actually have to go to a hearing examiner who makes the decision. So the director would make a recommendation to the hearing examiner, and the hearing examiner would then decide. But essentially, very similar criteria. I think that we would look at the comprehensive plan. Is this consistent with comprehensive plan policies? So all of that is laid out. Now, in the time I've been here, I think this has been requested of me once, and it was for a doggy daycare, which happened to me in my previous position as well. And so we really had to look at it and say, is this similar to a kennel? How are these operating? What is the, how close are they? No one has approached us to date about a data center. We have not had any inquiries, no requirements. Nobody has come in for a pre-application meeting or something. But I just did want to let you know that there is a feasible path potentially to a data center in the code today. So if the council's real desire is to close any path to be able to site a data center at this time, the option that we wanted to talk to is the idea of a moratorium. So do you want to go to the next slide? And Anne Marie, would you like to speak about the moratorium option?
Sure. So if the city council is so inclined to adopt a moratorium, this would be a way to basically pause any acceptance, processing, review, or approval of any application for data centers. There are some procedures that you would have to follow to adopt a moratorium. First of all, you have to have a public hearing within 60 days of the moratorium adoption. So in your moratorium ordinance, you can actually designate when the public hearing would occur. You could also have the public hearing at the same time as you adopt the moratorium. If you're having your public hearing after the adoption of the moratorium, then you just need to make sure that you adopt additional findings to support the continuation of that moratorium. Moratoriums are generally for 6 months. However, the city council could decide to have a moratorium of up to 1 year, so long as you have a work plan, a provision for a work plan, to have studies completed that necessitate that longer period of time for the moratorium. After you get to close to the expiration of the moratorium, you can extend the moratorium. You simply need to have another public hearing and adopt additional findings to support the continuation of the moratorium. Happy to answer any other questions that you might have about how that all would work.
We can continue on. I've gotten together, Anne Marie and I also were working with Chris Craig from Economic Development because we understood that one of the things the council had thought about was having the Economic Development Commission look at some of the options for potentially siting data centers and what's in it for the city. Is it good? Is it bad? What are those impacts? So recognizing that they have some set of skills, but probably not the same area around writing code and creating use definitions, we thought it would probably be pretty important to work together on this potential issue, CD and economic development, and then of course legal. So Chris is going to talk to you a little bit about some of the things that we think we would go about studying and analyzing if in fact you provide us direction to move forward. Chris?
Sure. Thank you, Liz. So some of the things we kind of workshop that would be areas we would want to bring back information on to understand the benefits of a data center would be things like economic benefits, things like job creation. Those could include permanent jobs, construction jobs, indirect jobs, induced jobs, property tax revenue, sales tax revenue, B&O tax revenue, utility tax revenue. And also in the economic growth scenario, attraction of complementary or other types of IT businesses that might co-locate with some development like this. We'd also need to look at what the infrastructure impacts are, both to water availability, to residents, and the water availability the districts, the several districts we have in Burien have available Also, the electrical grid and the capabilities there to support a data center like this and impact to residents. And then also stormwater infrastructure impacts. Also looking at environmental conditions like noise levels, air quality impacts, or emissions, and then land use. So is this type of development, depending on the scale of the potential development we could see, is that the best use of the land, incorporating the economic activity we might see per acre? And then importantly, I think also compatibility with existing land uses. So are the land uses in the surrounding area compatible with this type of development? So we also had a very initial preliminary discussion with the BDP this past Friday, and they kind of brought up some of these similar areas of study that would be important to look at. So I think, anything beyond this, if you all have input on what we should study that you don't see on that list, that would be great. But these would be the areas we thought would be important to check the boxes on if we were to bring back information for any permanent decision.
I think we have one more slide. We could go forward. Yeah, just questions. And then really we're hoping that we can get some direction from council on a couple of issues. One is if you wish to move forward with a moratorium, how long? And through what process, and then more information on kind of the scope of what analysis you would be anticipating coming back in those areas. So thank you.
Thank you. And you put that together very fast, really fast. And I'm impressed. And I saw that Councilmember Schilling had a question.
Thank you to you both. I think this is in line with what the council initially talked about with you about asking that question, like, does this work for this community and what size if it did, and if it doesn't, tell us it doesn't. And I think that being smart about this is better than being reactive and loud and I guess not thoughtful about it. These are things that already exist. If you pull out your Google Maps app right now and type in data centers near me, there's an entire SABI data center complex right off a Military Road in North Burien. There's a couple in Kent. They're already here. They already exist. If they didn't exist, we wouldn't be doing everything we're doing right now. So I think I want us to be smarter about this than just baseline saying absolutely not about whatever. I mean, if you come back to us and say it doesn't work for here, great. But I want to have a conversation about it and develop something that's smart so that we're actually living in the world we're living in. And so I really appreciate this list of categories and areas that you're going to spend time thinking about and figuring out for what works for this community. I'm excited for whenever that comes back to us, however long that takes. I don't know if we need based off what you said, Liz, I don't know if we necessarily need a moratorium. It sounds like it might be a little more legally burdensome than not so, but happy to have that discussion as well.
Was there a question involved in that, or was that more of just a direction?
I can, I think that regarding whether we need one or not, if we want to fully say, we're going to close the door until we know how we want to pursue this, a moratorium is the best option. If we are, kind of like, well, we'll roll the dice and see what happens, then probably no moratorium. I think either option is possible. I know that a lot of the data centers, and this reflects back to what you were mentioning, Councilmember Schilling, is that they are all different scales. One could be a 2-story building. One could look like an office building, just all sorts of different ways they're expressed in the community. The only way we could 100% confirm that there would not be any until we've done this research is to put the moratorium in place.
Anne Marie, I see you have a hand up.
Yeah, and just to kind of follow up on what Liz just said, when you're looking at how you would want to regulate data centers, if that's what the council wants to do. The moratorium would give you time to figure that out, not just whether you want them or not, or where they can be located or not, but also how they could be located in the city, if there are size limitations or other limitations that the city might want to put upon these types of uses. So this is your opportunity to have a more thoughtful and planned out discussion about data centers, and you can really take the time to do that without risking that someone might come in and submit an application for one and you don't have that in place. Or if you're comfortable with the regulations that you already have, that is also fine. It's just something to keep in mind, that if you want to place additional restrictions or regulations on data centers, you don't currently have that in your code. So it would really be that case by case situation that Liz talked about for citing unspecified uses.
Thank you. Thank you to all three of you for the recommendation. I think it's a really smart, thoughtful recommendation to kind of do two things at the same time. Having a moratorium in place for the moment because we don't have any code or we don't have any regulations that specify what we think about this type of structure and type of activity in the city, how we want to regulate it. And then during that time frame, having the conversations internally and with council and with commissions about how we do want to actually regulate it, and then have something in place. I think it's a very smart dual path.
Thank you. I think I saw Councilmember Mendez hand first and then Deputy Mayor Garcia.
Thank you for the presentation, especially given the timing, as Mayor Moore mentioned. I just want to echo kind of the approach that's been discussed here of giving the city time to have a discussion and get information, particularly to the public. Some of this is research that I haven't really done that much detail myself about potential environmental impacts. I'm also just interested in comparing those environmental impacts to, other sectors and other potential uses, because everything that humans do have an environmental impact. Certainly things like airports, which is not to dismiss the very real environmental impacts that I hear, at least at a base level, that data centers have. I have one other comment, and then I do have a question. I want to be really sensitive to the public opposition right now, at least at this moment, at this time this year. I did just a quick search. There was a Gallup poll in March of this year. Fully 71% of folks in that poll were opposed to AI data centers, with 48% of the poll were strongly opposed. This cuts across political parties, so it's a very sensitive issue. I think we're aware of that. My question just comes from my general lack of experience with land use. So it's just what are the potential risks of the case-by-case approach? What happens when an application is submitted for something, and this is kind of a more general question, but something that turns out to be quite sensitive? Can the city just say, I think too sensitive, we're not going to do it? And it could be anything. It could be, a nuclear waste dump site, or it could be something. It could just be just something that could end up being controversial. Are there legal risks of the city sort of somewhat arbitrarily, you could say, turning it down because there's backlash?
Liz, would you like me to take that, or do you want to take it?
Well, let me add one part and then I'm going to pass it to you.
Okay.
So one of the risks that we have if we don't have any regulations is that we don't have any ability to control how the use is set into a community. So, a lot of what we talk about are setbacks, or we talk about maybe landscaping barriers. We talk about what's the right height. None of those exist in that case either. So they have to meet the underlying zoning regulations, but you couldn't have additional potentially where, if, for the nuclear waste reactor, you probably want a pretty big, wide swath of area. We wouldn't have kind of thought that through and provided guidance in the code as to what is acceptable for this type of use. And then I'm going to pass it to Anne Marie for the question about the legality of not allowing a use.
Yeah, so there is criteria that's outlined in the code for citing unspecified uses. And that would allow you to deny an application for it being really inconsistent with your comp plan or incompatible with the zone and the intent of the zone that it's located, those types of things. If they otherwise meet the criteria, however, then the city should approve that use because to do so otherwise would be arbitrary. And that could really run the risk that the city could be challenged on it. So that's again why we wouldn't want to just do, well, this is a landfill. We don't want a landfill here. Well, if it's not consistent with the zone and it's not consistent with your comp plan, then you can say, yes, we don't want a landfill here because of this reason. But if it's just because, well, it does actually fit in the zone, we just don't want it, that's not really going to be sufficient. So again, I would recommend having really clear criteria as to when you would or wouldn't allow something. You have criteria already in your code for citing unspecified uses, but it's not really robust criteria for any particular type of use. It's just for unspecified uses in general.
Deputy Mayor Garcia.
Thanks. Thank you for that feedback and those questions. This is good dialogue. I just had a question on the current potential route of having one of these cited is through a hearing examiner. Is there any point at all that we as a council would have any touch point between the current availability of something happening?
The only point where the hearing examiner would get involved is if it's in the industrial zoning district is the first point to consider. That wouldn't happen anywhere else in the city. If that, and I don't know what the genesis of why it was put in there and nowhere else, but if the hearing examiner made a decision, it got to that point, they gave a decision, that would be appealable to the city council. So that would be the only point where the council would get involved potentially.
Thanks. I'll just share a comment. I think this is a really hot topic to discuss. I am in support of a 12-month moratorium, currently just based on so much information, so much going on. I definitely understand both sides, the economic impact of it, but I also see the environmental and social challenge. But shoot, even the Pope has weighed in on this recently, and I did want to suggest for us to look into also congruent to this potential moratorium, any sort of future policy that the city will establish as a policy guide for your own use of AI. Recently, we had an investor or an investment firm where I asked them, hey, how are you guys using AI for this? I think it's fair that we also, if we're going to study the potential viability of any data centers, for us to start to look into our own internal AI usage. So that's all. And my initial thinking on the 12-month is just based on general economic conditions, how long things would take, the situation internationally with everything from tariffs to the agreement recently landed by the president. I think it's something that 12 months seems very appropriate for us. And it gives us, our staff too, I think, adequate time to do some research too. So that's just my initial thoughts.
Councilmember DeVito.
I just want to say that I'm in favor of a moratorium and working with the city staff to find out more. I think it's important. I know that's a hot topic. I think it's also important to realize there are different types of data centers, and there are AI versions and that take up a lot of power and water, and then there's others that are a little less intensive. And so I want to make sure that we're being smart and just looking at all the different options that we have here for Burien, and appreciate all the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Any other questions or feedback? I have a little bit of feedback. This is very, what you've given is very close to kind of what I was hoping to see. So I don't have a lot of feedback because it looks like the questions that were keeping me awake thinking about this. And I hear more opinions and more responses to data centers than I hear facts or planning. And I think that it will really behoove all of us as council to study this together, and as a community, hopefully to be invited along on that study process, and staff, so that it's not it's not one staff member or one location holding the whole weight of this information. So that I really like the work you did. Do you have what you need from us?
Mayor, it would be helpful if we could get a positive affirmation for the amount of time for the moratorium that you would be interested in. Just maybe thumbs up across the table so we know the options would be 6 months or 12 months.
Okay. I think I've heard a couple of 12 months. It looks like there's overall support of 12 months. Do you want to share on that?
I understand the 12 months, but for me, I think I'd be better off knowing the 6 months and then moving from there. That's just my opinion.
So if we were closing in on 6 months, adding another 6, like re-upping.
That's assuming that we would add another 6 months.
Oh, Anne Marie has a hand up.
I just want to note that you can always terminate a moratorium early. So if you have done the work that you need to do and you feel that you have what you need and regulations will be ready to be adopted, you can always terminate it early.
Good to know. Thank you.
So it's 12 is what we started. It looks like there's general interest in it, and interest also in, you know, if we can terminate it early. Let's see what happens.
Thank you. We will continue to work with the city attorney and putting that together so that we can hold a public hearing and have that adopted. And we will be back shortly. I don't know exactly which date, but it will be soon. And we'll get that taken care of for you and start moving forward on the rest of the analysis.
Thank you. And next up, we have discussion and preparation for upcoming budget priorities and levy discussion. This is preparation for the July 6th, 2026 study session.
Mayor, if I could open up, I apologize. The two presenters are across the way. This is City Manager Larson, but I felt it was important in discussion with staff that we prepare the council. We know that along the continuum, some of you folks are maybe newer and some of you have obviously had experience in these areas, but I want to make certain that everyone's at a comfort level preparing themselves for July 6th. Doesn't mean you necessarily have to do a lot of homework, but there are going to be some requests, but I wanted to start with that to ensure that you folks didn't come in cold on July 6th. So I'll let Casey and Jennifer take over from here. Thank you.
Good evening again. I'm here. I'm Casey, the finance director. I'm here with Jennifer Howery from All Angles Consulting, and she worked with you during your retreat. And we're just going to discuss how to prepare for July 6th.
Let's see if we can advance the slide. Oh, less. Perfect. So today we'd like to do the following: review the 2023 through 2028 vision and strategic plan and priorities, because that's going to be a basis for decision making for the next biennium budget. We'll refresh your focus areas that you've already identified. We'll talk through the timeline for budget development and make sure that you're up to speed on what you'll need to be prepared for on July 6th. All of this will ensure staff has your direction on priorities in order to prepare the preliminary budget scenarios. So just going to read the vision statement because it's still in effect. Your vision and strategic plan was through 2028. So the vision was a vibrant and creative community where the residents embrace diversity, celebrate arts and culture, promote vitality, and treasure the environment. Out of that, there are 4 priorities that we're entering the final 2 years of realizing: achieving financial stability, achieving racial equity, centering community accountability, and reshaping community through smart, mindful development. So let's crosswalk what we've already heard you say are focus areas for each of the priorities that we've outlined. So achieving financial stability, we have fiscal sustainability, we have community well-being and quality of life, we have organizational effectiveness, and we have economic vitality. For achieving racial equity, we have housing and homelessness, community well-being and quality of life, and organizational effectiveness. You'll see that some of these show up in more than one category, which means with the same attempt, you're really making an impact on multiple priorities. So that might be something that you would want to call out as important because you're hitting more than one priority. Under centering community accountability, you have housing and homelessness, community well-being and quality of life. You'll see that one a couple more times. And organizational effectiveness. And under reshaping community through smart, mindful development, you see housing and homelessness, community well-being and quality of life, organizational effectiveness, and economic vitality.
I made a note, this was Jennifer's, it's mine. So those critical or those focus areas are ones that we've obtained from discussions in February and in April. That's what we have pulled from those discussions. And when we go into our July 6th study session, we are looking to discuss priorities to budget decisions. And we're going to be asking council to provide some specific things on preservation, what we should invest in, and what we may need to defer, phase in or out, and things that we may need to reconsider or tier over a period of time. And the reason is, as we've continued to discuss, is our resources are limited and we need to have clear priorities with staff to build this budget, to give you a preliminary budget to make decisions from. So the next 2 weeks, staff will be working together and bringing for July 6th, we're going to build something to bring to you guys to identify 2 to 3 areas to focus on. And we want to confirm that the level of expectations that we should be maintaining or enhance, and identify lower areas of priority so that we can maybe reduce what we provide for or delay or phase out some of those. And staff will be using the direction. We'll be bringing to you guys some examples and getting some specific yes, nos, maybe thumbs ups. We're not making decisions that are like through an ordinance or resolution, but just some clear boundaries and guidelines that we can build a budget to bring to you with numbers. And you'll have some, I'm skipping slides without skipping slides. Budgeting. So staff will be bringing some estimated revenue, or what our available resources will be based on some existing revenue estimates, preliminary estimates. I have beginning fund balances from 2025 ending fund balances that are updated, and we will have forecasted revenues. Staff will be preparing to provide, we will have an updated forecast through 2031, sorry. And We'll have preliminary expenses categorized between what's required, what's grant funded, and what's available after those. We'll go over the restricted funding, which often are the grant funded programs and expenditures and other dedicated revenue sources. And the goal, like I said, will be coming out of there with 2 to 3 main areas of focus to present for a more detailed preliminary budget for your review. We want to be able to move forward to build an informed, thoughtful budget and meet that fiscal responsibility box in our priorities. We will also be bringing a levy discussion. The levy discussion will help staff help work together to plan next steps to ensure that we're providing direction that is aligning with council priorities and our community priorities. One of the topics of the levy discussion is the timing of the levy, because that will be key. And how we want potential priorities in the levy and how council would like us to build for public outreach programs. So we'll be walking away from there with some key directions, and we'll bring you some ideas, but some specific directions on which way to move forward with the levy. Is that you?
So quick overview of our decision timeline. You're here today reviewing prior discussions, preparing for July decisions. On July 6th, you'll identify 2 to 3 focus areas and discuss levy direction. Sometime in the summer, fall, staff will develop the preliminary budget scenarios for you to review. Fall of 2026, you'll review and refine any recommendations you have. In late 2026, you'll be expected to adopt the 2027-2028 biennial budget. And by January, council starts the 2029 through 2035 vision and strategic plan. So we've got a year to land the future of Burien and what you want to see there. Great. So for July 6th, our hopes are to get the top 2 to 3 focus areas ahead for the budget from you, as well as your direction on service level expectations and guidance on the potential levy explorations, as well as clear parameters for developing preliminary budget scenarios. What questions do you have for us?
I want to say it's good to see you again.
It's great to see you. Thank you for inviting me back.
Thank you for coming. Does anybody have questions? Yes, Councilmember Andrade.
Can you go back to this slide right before?
This one?
Yes, you talked about guidance on potential levy exploration. So we're talking a new levy, not similar to the public safety levy that didn't pass. Is that correct? Okay, great.
Yeah, we want to pursue a levy, or we've had a couple council members mention that they want to talk about a levy to see if we want to pursue a future levy and what that future levy would look like. Like I said, one of the items is timing. Timing is important along with public outreach. So we had a public comment tonight that they were, not opposed to a levy, but that levy. So like finding out what the community would like to see in a levy.
Okay, and I have a follow-up if I can. Well, it's more of a comment or statement. I do want to thank you for all of the work that you did on the previous levy. You answered our questions. You made yourself available to us as council members for Q&A. And I know that I heard the same comment at public comment. While we might have, I guess, a different perspective on the outcome, it's not, for me, I think it's unfair to say that it was a failure on your part, that there weren't any postcards that were sent out. Postcards were sent out. public meetings were done. I was present at the meeting that you had, and it's unfortunate there were just a handful of people present. And so we also have to recognize that if we want to be informed, we need to make sure that we come out and find out the information that we're wanting to have. So, but I just wanted to thank you for all of the work that you put into that.
Thank
You
you.
and Caitlin,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you.
Other questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Garcia?
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. This is really good. Funnel driving our follow-up from the first retreat that we had at the was that April? March?
Early April.
Early April. Really appreciate it. Just one quick clarifying question, not my original question. Is July 6th outcomes, is this everything that we're gonna try to have answered by the July 6th meeting, or we'll start discussions to have by the end of July, have all those things done?
Well, we're hoping that July 6th will walk away with something solid
Got it.
that staff can build numbers into. So that when we come back, you'll have scenarios to say, this works, this doesn't work, or let's reorganize something. So we're hoping that July 6th will have something solid that you can,
A big chunk of those checkoffs.
yeah, the checkoff. So then when we come next time, it'll be like, here's your budget. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I really appreciate this. This is really helpful. I think it's starting to get us focused. As a new council, this a new membership, and potentially a new council member joining us. One thing I just wanted, I think will be helpful for me going forward, is to kind of review this in context, especially since one of the last items is start thinking of the next strategic plan. I just wanted to, I've been going through our current strategic plan, which is from 2023 through 2028. And, I'm centering how far are we in through that strategic plan as we look forward to potential levy, budget considerations. I just did a quick, we have a great website. First of all, our Burien Community Hub, shout out. And it does give us a percentage of goal on the 5 same topics that you shared: the achieving the financial stability, achieving racial equity, centering community accountability, and reshaping community through smart, mindful development. I think looking at this, it looks like most of our goals were at 50% to goal. So we're in 2026, 2023. So we're getting at that 50% place. But I'm noticing that the one goal that's the lowest at 40% is achieving racial equity. So I'm going to focus a lot of my discussions for this upcoming budget discussion on the understanding current programs, hiring and practices through equity. I see that there was our action plan. R is our Advancing Racial Equity Committee, and there was developing an R action plan with metrics. It wasn't started. I believe we invested previously in a consultant to work within our staff. So as we look into it, this is one of the things that I wanted to make sure we lift up to look at. Yes, I want to go and look ahead forward to the newest strategic plan. Like, where are we on the last one?
We will bring an update at July 6th on that also. Thank you for bringing that up.
Any other questions or comments? I have one on on the budget and one on the levy. For the levy, I didn't see it on there. I know we had talked at one time about metropolitan parks districts, and I was wondering if that was also.
I do know that I've been in a couple meetings about the metropolitan parks with city manager and Deputy Mayor Garcia. I do, I don't know how far that got. Most of the conversations were very high level. I do have some concerns about having a Burien Metro Park, because we inherited a park that ran out of money and inherited it with some infrastructure that wasn't well maintained. I do fear that if we did that again in 10 or 15, 20 years, we would inherit the same issue. So that's something but that's just me thinking at that high level conversations that I've been in. So I'm not sure the metropolitan parks, where the borders were on that. And I'm not sure if that conversation's kind of fizzled out. I'm not certain where that's at because I was just brought in at very high level. So I do want to, if we do explore that option, I think that we should consider if we would have a repeat history of how we landed with parks. So
Okay. Yeah.
is my only thought. That's my only thought on that. So, but I'm open to continuing to look into that.
Okay, I know you were part of more.
I'll do a brief debrief on my last conversation regarding this topic. Feasibility wise, it's an option, but there's a lot of complexities that will make it so that there's challenging. We'll be competing for the same voting tax. In essence, we're going to create another competing taxing venue, another step. So at the time, it was recommended or suggested that it was a long-term potential once we settled our budget to look at that for future. That's a very crude way of explaining it, but
Yeah, so we're capped in Burien at $5.90 per thousand. And so every taxing district that you add to that pushes that cap. And some of those smaller taxing districts, like a park, metropolitan park, if we get beyond that, they start losing money. So then it ends up, like I said, becoming that where they can't maintain their infrastructure again. And our taxing system, really, I'm saying go talk to your legislator, because our taxing system it needs reevaluated, and it needs to be revamped, statewide. And that is part of the challenges. And at our meeting that we were at with the port, maybe we look at something more regional partnerships, or just partnership with other government agencies. I'm not certain what that would look like in the future or long term, but I think it's worth exploring. Maybe with some of the school districts. I don't know what conversations are being had with the Parks Department and the school districts, but I know that those tend to be the partnerships that are starting to develop, because schools can't maintain rec facilities and parks can't maintain rec facilities separately, but jointly maybe they could do a better job and create better community facilities. So just maybe some ideas to think about.
Thank you. That was a lot of answer. So really it's kind of like competing with all of the other, the fire, and nobody wants to compete with the fire district.
You can't compete with the firefighters. They're heroes.
And then I had a kind of a goal that I have is kind of for this is, we're talking about the budget and ways that we can minimize the impact with a budget that's challenging. And a goal I have is just for us as council and I think it kind of is connected with things that Councilmember Andrade has said, to have a good vocabulary and a good way of discussing this that really grounds our goal setting, so that we're talking the talk of what we discuss on July 6th and bringing that back in our community engagement.
Yeah, that would be Much appreciated. Thank you.
Other, Councilmember Ajadi.
This is a random question about the park you were talking about that we inherited with the infrastructure issues. Was this the Southern Heights?
Well, I'm not completely sure, but I think we used to, so Burien became Burien in 1993. So I'm guessing we got the parks from King County, and then we contracted with first for maintenance, I think is my understanding. So um, the infrastructure's probably not had a lot of changes since we inherited, since prior to us inheriting it. And you can see that if you go visit Mosier or, I mean, and our parks has done a great job. I mean, Seahurst is beautiful and it was well thought out when they revived it, but there's so many other facilities, and we've done some stuff to BCC, but none of that is lasting forever. And the playground equipment, some of it's getting replaced, but we have a lot of parks in our 13.2 square miles of city. So it takes a lot of upkeep to maintain them. And I think like I said, we received that from King County in 93. That's a long time ago, but not really. And it needs a lot of love. So
Thank you.
All right, any further discussion? Do you have what you need for July 6th?
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you again. And that gets us to the city council planning calendar. Anything for planning calendar? Councilmember DeVito.
I'd like to see if we can get a presentation about and what's been going on at SCORE. I think it's been over a year since the council has heard from SCORE.
Do we have thumbs up for a report from SCORE? Is SCORE, do they have any contractual requirements to report to us, or do we need to ask them?
I could probably speak a little bit about SCORE. I've been attending their administrative board meetings and financial board meetings. But I can get an update from them. I'll see if Devin maybe wants to come present at council one night.
We'll put in a request.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other planning topics? Were you raising a hand, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, just I've been going through the strategic plan and looking at it at where we're at, goal to date. And a lot of it is projects on housing and our budget. But one of the items, and I think we've received presentations over the last couple of years on a lot of different departments on it, but one of the items that I had not received, or I can't recall having received an update on, is the one I mentioned. And I think it's really critical, especially now, and would love to hear from our let me, here's the definition. Gosh, this is a really robust website. Thank you. Okay, yeah, the Advancing Racial Equity Committee. I think that's an internal staff, city committee, and I would love to just get an update on, I think, from where they got through some of the work that they've done over the last couple of years, especially with a consultant that I believe we had invested in.
We have thumbs up for that? Yes, we have thumbs up for that. And I've been hearing a lot from community about wanting an update on the climate action plan. Would there be interest in just, I know we've done a lot on it, and I know that things connect to the climate action plan that we don't necessarily think about those connecting pieces. So I would love a report on that. And at no particular time. I know after Storm Fest, they probably all just need to decompress for a little minute. Any other future agenda topics? All right, then with that, the council will now meet in an executive or closed session per RCW 42.30.1101H to evaluate the qualifications of a candidate for appointment to elected office, and RCW 42.30.1101I to discuss with legal counsel pending or potential litigation to which the city is or is likely to become a party when public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in an adverse legal or financial consequences to the city. The council will be in executive session for 50 minutes until 9:25. The council may or may not take further action following the executive session. I call the regular meeting back to order at 9:21 PM. Any further business? Seeing none, the meeting is adjourned.